honestly, I'm pretty shocked to have seen this, folks, and I'm suspecting that you'll be shocked as well. Now, I just did a story on a CNN host or a CNN guest panelist who basically says outright, we never talk about Bernie Sanders. He's super consistent, but we never say anything about him. So I've been trying to point out mainstream media biases and box outs of Bernie Sanders. Now, the outlet that hates Bernie Sanders the most is undoubtedly MSNBC, because they spend the most time going after Bernie Sanders. All right? They have hosts like Joyanne Reid, Zerlina Maxwell, absolutely, impossible to bear, unbearable hosts who constantly take a dump on Bernie Sanders. It's absolutely disgusting. So it's honestly more shocking to see what we're going to see here from MSNBC. MSNBC. Some people call it MSDNC, which is, I think, perfectly accurate. They're a complete failure. But they're going to praise Bernie Sanders here. I mean, in the previous one, he's basically doing some light compliments of saying he's consistent. This one is outright praising him and saying that he has a chance to win. Let's hear this out.
Bernie Sanders, on a national level, has also, generally speaking, retained his second-place spot. It's moved a little bit, but he continues to perform well on a national level.
Yeah, and Sanders, you think about this, it was back in October, Sanders had a heart attack, and the folks were looking at him saying, you have this health issue, you're the oldest candidate in the field, maybe, and that was when Elizabeth Warren was surging in the polls. Yep. Maybe this is sort of it. This is sort of the peak for Bernie Sanders. Since then, it's Warren who's dropped precipitously in the polling. It is Sanders who's actually climbed several points. He was falling. There were some polls there back then that had him falling to third. Now he's clearly in second place in this race. And again, if you look at Sanders, he has strength in Iowa, nearly won it in 2016, won New Hampshire big in 2016, next door neighbor. If he could put together a win in Iowa and roll that into New Hampshire, one number that jumps out, I saw in a poll this week with all Democratic voters nationwide, favorable, unfavorable view of Bernie Sanders, 76% favorable, 15% unfavorable. Democrats like him. Democratic voters like him. And if he starts winning, there could be a bandwagon effect.
I have to say, if you're watching tonight's debate, I'm watching to see whether Elizabeth Warren can do something to regain her momentum.
Yeah, that's interesting. We say that if Sanders has ticked up, it's Warren who has ticked down in the last 2 months or so.
So I believe this guy's name is Steve Kornacki. So shout out to Steve. I didn't know who this guy was. I know who Ali Velshi is, of course. He's done some good stuff as well. But it's very shocking to see MSNBC actually praise Bernie Sanders and basically say, not even really praise him, honestly. Like, it's sad that I'm calling it that, because really what they're doing is they're just reporting on the facts. That's what they're doing. They're just stating the facts, which is that he's he's a candidate who has a real chance, a real shot to win this election. He's in second place at about 8 points behind before hitting any of the primaries, okay? So it's like, the fact that I am impressed by them just relaying basic facts and info is the saddest thing on the entire planet. Seriously, it really is, because it just goes to show you how embarrassing and sad it is, how sad our mainstream media news outlets are. I mean, again, MSDNC is the worst when it comes to anti-Bernie content. It's even worse than Fox News, because MSNBC is way more, they're way more interested and hunkered down into trying to silence Bernie Sanders. That's what they are. And so I do like to show this whenever they do this kind of a thing. But shout out to Steve Kornacki. And I also want to say that I like how he brought up the 2016 wins, because Bernie did come within 0.2% in Iowa of winning. And, there was a lot of shady stuff going on in Iowa as well in terms of voting. And then he won in New Hampshire by 20 plus points. So, really cool that he mentioned that. These things could look really good for Bernie after the first couple of states. So, shout out to Steve.